We welcome you, Mr. Jogi, and I'll just give a short introduction about who he is, what he do, and probably what he has done till now. So, Mr. Jogi Panghaal is a designer, a teacher, and a thinker with a special focus on a role of a design in social innovation and sustainable livelihoods creation. His research, learning, and co creation experience focuses on sources and design methodologies of the craftsman people, and how craftsmanship and traditional artisans communities can be inspirational for the sustainable design of products and services in modern societies. Mr. Jogi has studied product design in 1979 from National Institute of Design, and further, he has been connected to several NGOs and state governments in Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and other as well. He has taught in several Indian institutes and as well as in internationally. He has taught in Les Ateliers Paris and Gerrit Rietveld Académie, if I'm pronouncing it right. And he currently lives between Ahmedabad and Delhi. So over to you, Mr. Jogi. We welcome you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I really want to thank you guys for inviting me into your forum, and thank you, Seema. I actually enjoy these conversations. I hope we have it like a conversation. I do have a part that I like to share, the images that I like to share, but otherwise, I think we should keep it like a conversation. And my takeaway from these conversations is really, it sort of helps me to understand my own republic better and also begin to recognize other emerging republics. So basically, uh, this concept of republics of design, I started to work on it for a while now. I realized that in design, when designers meet, we end up sort of talking in a very kind of a, open-ended way. And even when somebody is working in a, say, large corporate or a large industry, uh, then they sort of begin to dabble in, say, craft, and then they return and so on. So, which is nice. I mean, I quite like the fact that people can move in, in terms of cross, in a manner one could say in the cross domains and cross areas. But there are certain specific things that happen when you are working, when you actually look into the whole thing in terms of republics. So I would talk about the republic that I live in. It's a republic that is defined by hand, essentially by hand. So when we're talking about republics, there is a kind of a large industry spawned republics. Within that industry, you have various kinds of domains, but essentially industry, which is working with latest technologies, tools, new materials, and driven towards a particular kind of end. And then you have a republic that exists in marketing and advertising. Whose sort of priorities have been written about quite a bit, and most famously by Victor Papanek, that you guys may like to read him, Design for the Real World author. And then you have a republic of design educators, actually, who are teaching in design schools. It's also a very specific republic. Uh, and what else? And people who are researching, designers who get into the field of research, which is very, very interesting. And they inhabit their own republic. So, so there are many designers tend to get into various sectors, and they kind of uh, help in developing domain knowledge, legacy, and so on. And I feel that we should actually consciously try and create these specific delineation of these republics, like what are the boundaries, or if one was to take this metaphor further, what would be its constitutional value, for instance? What is a republic's constitutional values? What would be its directive principles? What would be its, responsibilities, and so on? And it becomes quite interesting when you go further into it. So my republic, like I said, is defined by what hand can do, and which essentially means what artisanship. Hands have gone on to kind of develop a domain, very specialized domain of extraordinary quality, which is the world of crafts and artisanship, and it's a world that sort of sprawls across the country. In many states, is more important than in some other states, and so on. But it's present in every nook and corner, actually, and it's present in our own homes. We have people walking through our house as services, as helps, who actually come from a different republic, and sort of help us in terms of our requirements and in needs, and then they go back to the republic. So it's a very interesting kind of phenomena that happens. So what I'm going to do is to take you on a journey of this republic, and suggest, like, when one actually goes into this republic, what is it that one encounters? What are the salient features of this republic? So I have, my original presentation has huge number of slides, and it takes quite a bit of time. I thought in this conversation that we have 90 odd minutes and so on. We had 90 minutes, but so I would try and sort of take maybe half an hour or 40 minutes to talk about this, and then we'll have a good conversation. Okay. So maybe I should share the screen now. Okay. So this is this slide has only one line, but I want you to keep it keep in mind. Towards the end, I shall close the story with it. So humans on the planet, and like this is an image of when you go to Bastar. Bastar is an area in Chhattisgarh where I have worked the most with communities, particularly communities that do castings and iron forgings. I'll show you some of the work that I've done with these communities, and so that's the kind of image that welcomes you, and it's almost like a party ready to greet you in the Republic of Design. And this could be, if you don't carefully look at the electric wires and so on, this could be thousands of year old photograph, completely dateless. I mean, that's the way people have been. And I don't look at it in any condescending way. I think these are like timeless values that are embedded in these bodies, which I feel is one of the resource that one works with. That's a resource that you constantly are connecting with. So in these areas, when you visit to work, this is the beginning of learning. And then you see incredible forms very easily and very beautifully incorporated, this is a mud house and step. Actually, there was another photograph, another step that she had made for a child who had just started to crawl. So one fine morning, she just very simply created that step. So I find these amazingly beautiful because they are so well balanced. They create some kind of tension when you're looking at it, and it's all done with materials that have been picked up from around, and with great economy of movements. The choreography is not wasteful at all. And then you see something like this, where you have a stunning courtyard. Uh, Again, the form, the colors that are normally derived from the local ground. This blue is an import. These guys actually looked around and they saw that Marwadis paint their colors in blue, their houses in blue. And actually, because the blue was the cheapest color, so the tribals thought that if you paint your house blue, you'll get money, like the Marwadis made money. So, anyway, so you see its prevalence in many places. You look at this, except for the blue, rest of the colors are local. And, the way it's been applied is uncanny, There's certain kind of uh, a sort of mastery in compositions and application. And these are the little streets that children run through and play with, And it's these spaces that end up sensitizing these children to, towards being much more uh, sensitive to materials, to the spaces, to the fragility of certain materials, hardness of other materials, and so on. So, as a visitor, you actually get into learning the same lessons by the sheer presence of these kind of structures. This is a kitchen. I like it very much. It's, I just dropped by. They didn't know I was coming or anything, and that's the way it was. Uh, the way the entire kitchen and the other room and then yet another room, the kind of mediation that happens between these spaces, and the very brutal honesty of furnitures is remarkable. So this is, I see these as lessons in becoming somebody to work with them. These are, if one doesn't kind of connect with them in a manner that one should connect, purely because of the sheer, starkness and the beauty of these, very hard to actually work with them. This is, you can see, it's a simple house with a embedded grinding, wheat grinding chakki. I like the way the spaces get connected, almost very liquid way, material but very liquid. That's another house, enters another threshold. And here is a lady who had, who had worked on this house, and then she went and had a bath and then massaged her body. And I was very struck by this fact that the hand that went on the house is the hand that went on her body, And in fact, I was very inspired to write one essay on this body of a home of a body kind of thing. Extremely inspiring. And look at everything around here, So this is really the Republic of Hands that that has over the years created amazing skill sets. This lady in Madhubani, where she's working with terracotta, and it's a posture she attains to do what she's doing. often in our discussions, we talk about ergonomics and all of that, which is very useful, very important. I think we have to look at those things. But we also have to look at some of the postures that are de-stressing, that are important for body to take, for body to visit, and so on. This is from Rajasthan, and I just like the way certain embedding of things happen in the processes. This is from close to here, in close to Hyderabad, Jawar roti. And this is something that all of you must have seen, and I claim that this is the first stitch in human history. It's very simple, and this led to huge number of developments later on. Another remarkable product, first acts of weaving that the farmers' wives perfected, and into making many other products. And simultaneously, I mean, this kind of act has occurred across the continents, but in the same republic of hands, Tokis you're all familiar with, but the way you carry it, it's the way you carry your baby, and it's the same kind of choreographies that you notice in many of these things. And so the relation between craft and body is really that of a child and mother. Another site that we see where animals actually have a very important sort of a role, and there are hundreds and hundreds. If you go to Pushkar fair in Rajasthan, like there are nearly 700 to 800 shops which come up just addressing the accessory needs of the camels and other animals. So this kind of fussiness and care that is showered on animals who are really family members, really, in these families. And you see these basic stylistic traditions for makeup and so on, which again get inspired by the traditions of doing these. I forget the term we use for doing that in front of our doors and so on, which you're familiar with. And then you have this mehndi thing, and Kantha, very famous the craft tradition from Bengal. That really some born out of using old saris, old dhotis, and sort of reimagining them, purposing them, and this is a slightly more sort of specialized version of that. Having learned skills, many of these women now turn it into almost works of art, and I find that very, very inspiring. This and migrants into the city who actually bring in that same sensibility, and even in a survival kind of a context, actually fall back on the sensibilities that they grew up with, and organize their trade around that. A potter, who another role of a potter, which is almost like she has an intimate connect with it. is able to listen to it as well as she's able to listen to her own child. Uh, and the sheer diversity in this republic, because the things were made with hand. For every little requirement, a form was born, a new form was born, a new material was explored, and so on. This was collected in one particular region in Northeast India over a sort of specific period. And I was amazed at just the diversity of these containers. Okay, so I hope you guys are listening.
Yes, sir.
System is working.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, yes.
Okay, so we can pause here because that was one part of the story of education. That's the education in a Republic of Hands. And now I go into the second part where I'm showing my very early work, and then I'll show you my last work. So do you want me to run through that and then have a kind of composite Q&A?
Yes, sir. Whatever you may like.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just carry on.
Sure, sir.
Seema, I hope it's not, sometimes same voice showing beautiful pictures puts people to sleep. So in case I'm aware of that issue. So in case you want to sort of break it, let me know. And anybody wants to raise a question at any stage, please let me know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the. I wanted everybody to really look. This is the extent of industry, handmade industry. The word industry has come in from industriousness of people, from the sheer work that they, capacity to work in a particular way, and that, of course, the term has been hijacked in one particular direction, and another huge republic has formed. But this is this is my republic's industry. Small, very small wife, husband, and a child. Wife drives the power. Husband manipulates the tools, and it's a hand iron forging unit done with hands. And these are the kind of things that get produced there. So when I was there, I said, let's make some really I didn't really know what all they were capable of, because in most of these places they normally sell everything, so there are no references. So you start with ground zero, and drawings, etc., didn't work. So I said, let's just work with in a particular way that I've developed, and these are single piece of material that's been shaped into these forms, and it's iron. The process is forging. So, but the sheer lyrical quality that it has is amazing. I mean, every time I see these images, I'm sort of really inspired. They almost are calligraphy pieces themselves, and they are like drawing, and this particular goat or bakra that's doing a catwalk. It's really this where they're able to sort of create the neck, compassion in that neck in iron, or this small confidential conversations, or this. And this was very interesting. So challenging that. I realized, while working there, the thing is really to work at the level of creating a very challenging conversation where you keep wondering if that is possible, or this is possible, or what if that happens, and so on. So here, there was a very stark shadow there, It's like, if that was possible, he said, of course possible, and he had never made this before, but just sheer confidence. And it's a single piece of metal that has both the, the real piece and the shadow. And then I sort of challenged them further. I said, but the rays have kind of moved further down. He said, wo bhi bana denge. And this is in perspective, huh? And anyway, that's another piece which is really sparkling. I love the lyricity in this. This is lamps can hold candles and so on. And my contribution really was to look at its stand and offer multiple possibilities. People could actually choose whichever stand they wanted for these lamps to be housed in. Rest, I was mostly sort of watching the birth of these forms. And then there were people around working with sticky grass, like here, and who said, "Ki, hame bhi isme kuch karo." And I said, "Okay." So these are mats, which really tell the story of. It's for the dining table. Tell the story of where food comes from. It's a trigger story. I made many of them with mixing sticky grass and iron. And then these were some of the basket that we sort of created. Okay, so that was Bastar many years ago, late 90s, early 2000, and this is the last project. This was done for an exhibition on pastoral cultures, which was spearheaded by Sushma Iyengar from Khamir, Khamir and several other organizations actually joined hands and put together this terrific exhibition. Was at IGNC in Delhi in December 2016. And I did a collection of products in with several skills sets. So here, what I really like to show is that how do you start? What kind of an approach you take while entering a community like this? And it really started with me understanding how pastoral culture, people in this particular kind of a domain, how do they handle their material culture? How they minimalize the need to carry things and so on. And so we looked into the garments and how they virtually have nothing that they waste while making things, and so on. So this whole leather collection was really was an attempt to understand from their principles and try and avoid, basically aspire for zero waste and so on. So which meant that you accept the hide the way it is and you don't reject it. Like for instance here, there were some pieces that, like here, the hide had a little eye or a hole, and we just put a beautiful patch to it. And so we never rejected any hide. We never rejected any part of the skin because it had a different texture and so on. And we never really fixed a size, because fixing a size is basically what generates waste. So we would sort of work out, look at the hide and say, okay, let's make 2 pieces out of it or 3 pieces out of it and so on, those kind of things. But never wasted anything. These little pieces that you see on the floor is about the only thing, and that are, that is a little bit sort of come off the product, but they could also be used somewhere. And these opening, we sort of made sure that no accessory came in from the city. Everything was within, accessed from the village. Even the threads, the spinners are at hand, and so on. And so we developed all the locking mechanisms or tying mechanisms like this with the leather itself. And these are all hand stitched, beautifully hand stitched. So you here is a piece that actually in a kind of a miniature form again represents their learnings or their beliefs in that material culture that they have developed over the years. Here again, this has a very distinctive kind of a skin which we didn't reject, and so this was a small collection of goat hides that I found, and we sort of turned it into water carrying thing. Actually, there used to be water carrying devices like this before in leather, but in present day time, people wouldn't like to drink off leather, So we made it for carrying water bottles, but it does have a striking resemblance to the way originally water was carried. And I like that very much. I think, if we can, even in contemporary products, if we can carry the cues of how the history has been, it's a wonderful thing. It just creates layers of understanding something. I also developed footwear, which worked on the same principle of single piece. And it's also single piece, which is folded. In fact, that's so. This is a separate thing. I'll come to that. All these were so comfortable that often I would also get into bed without removing these. They actually had a feel of pair of socks, And these were some of the traditional ones, but we added, you see on the uppers, some very interesting kind of new patterns. So played around with that. And then you have worked with lacquer artists, and there's a casting that artisans who specialize in casting as well. We brought in this little touch of humor and fun. We brought in the head of a camel as a handle, and the foot of the camel as its base. It turned out to be quite nice, actually. And then these were other such pieces in castings, in bronze casting, which kind of moves towards more what one would call artistic kind of pieces. Then you had these items. In Kashmir, this is done on. Hello, you there? Can
Yes,
you
sir,
hear
we're
me?
listening.
Yeah, sir.
Yes,
Ah,
sir.
okay, because
Yes, sir.
power went out here, so I was little.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, and these are papier-mâché pieces. Actually, in Kashmir, when they say papier-mâché artists, they largely refer to this quality of painting that happens on the boxes, which are also made different ways, including by using papier-mâché materials. In copper, and I realized you could actually even invent new leaves and so on. This is another thing that happens with in this sector, that you're constantly at the cusp of making something that as a form or a pattern or something that didn't exist before, and it's very easily artisans really very openly embrace it. This is in walnut, and I like to always create this kind of a situation where people appreciate the journey, where the wood was before carving and what became of it after carving. It's a single piece, Because if you show only the fully carved piece, then you don't really have the origin point in it, and people perhaps don't appreciate it as critically as they should. So in my designs, I try to do this. And I do a lot of this kind of stuff where something is come from, where it's born from, and so on. These are just knickknacks to be kept on the table. You just play around with it. And that's the quality of carving. Absolute masters.
So, what material has
Okay,
been used in the last slide?
walnut,
Is it
walnut
wood?
wood. Yeah, wood, walnut wood. And this this guy, I mean, he's a master craftsman, actually, wonderful man, and he has close to, I think, 45 chisels, for various requirements for the eye, for various parts of the body, various plants, and so on. And it's amazing. So this is
Also, sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
sir. So, one of the students actually wanted to ask the iron casting thing. Does it has any name
yeah.
as a craft?
Sorry,
Can you hear me?
it has what?
So, does that craft has a name? The iron casting thing which you have showed the slides of?
Jogi is the
Yeah,
Bastar one. First one.
dokra. Casting is dokra.
Look up. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's called dokra castings. Dokra is also known in Odisha, parts of Odisha that touch Chhattisgarh.
Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
so but that's really the last thing of my work situation, and then I try and sort of put it together. Uh, so what's happening? We started with humans on the planet, and now we have a situation of planet in the humans. Uh, and this is affecting my republic as well. And sometimes very good ways, sometimes it does raise larger issues about, uh, sort of loss of certain human exchanges and so on. Anyway, we can talk about it. So, what I suggest here is that we have a kind of a global access that we have never had before. You have artisans being addressed from across the world, orders coming in from all sorts of remote parts that one may have never heard of. So that reality is that kind of fantasy is an actual reality today for many parts of India. And I'll give you some examples from here where I am, and my own current visits into those markets and into the homes of these artisans. So here you have the global access, you have online markets, several stores that are only online, and you have a very vibrant social media. And this is the point. I think for me also it's been a revelation that you go into somebody's home and you say, "Where did you get that from?" And they say, "YouTube." There's this guy who's developed 6 wonderful low technology machines. So he done it, learned it from YouTube, and so on. So YouTube has become, a hugely influential teacher. And anybody wanting to learn something new, they just look into YouTube. And even, a section that we thought was a little bit unprepared to handle technology, like women, they are working at it. And that's my slide to suggest that this whole role of who is a teacher and who is a student is dramatically shifting. This is a little bit of an exaggeration, but this actually is not far from the truth. Okay, this is an image I wanted to show because this was taken by the astronauts who were in Apollo mission 8, and this was December 1968. It's the first time people actually saw a real photo of Earth that world hadn't seen, and it is understood that it's the seeing of this image that gave rise to the idea of sustainability. You know, you saw this image and you gasped and you said, "Look, you can't let this planet, be destroyed." And so this very, very, very vulnerable, beautiful blue planet is there, and I argue that people in my Republic of Hands actually have had this sense of not disturbing this planet all their lives, and they continue to work actually along that belief. So here is my last slide, and we can have a conversation now.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really insightful.